There were 2 cruise missiles hitting.
Keep up the fight, Ukraine.
This is a country that fights corruption.
Supporting Ukrainians is easy.
People are exhausted.
We're staying with Ukraine, and that's an important statement to make.
Katarína Mathernová is the European Union ambassador to Ukraine. She previously served as Deputy Director General of the European Commission's Directorate General for Neighborhood and Enlargement, and also led the EU's support group for Ukraine. With a background at the European Commission, the World Bank, the private law practice, and the Slovak government, she brings decades of experience in policy and international affairs. Ms. Mathernová holds law degrees from Comenius University in Bratislava and the University of Michigan, is a member of the New York Bar, and speaks 6 languages. For her work in the region, she has been honored by the presidents of Ukraine and Moldova, and the foreign minister of Lithuania.
Hi, I'm Natalka Cmoc. I'm the Canadian ambassador to Ukraine, and you're watching Off the Record, which is a podcast about having frank conversations in the diplomatic community. And I am here today with the European Union ambassador Katarína Mathernová. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Natalka.
I am thrilled you're here. We've had a few ambassadors here, but one of the questions that a lot of people have is why do we need an EU ambassador when we have all the countries represented here? How do you answer that question?
Well, I represent the European institutions. That means the European Council, which is the member states, the president of which is Antonio Costa. Since a year ago, I represent the European Commission, the European Parliament, all of the EU institutions, the Court of Accountants, the judiciary of the EU. So, in other words, all that happens in Brussels, in the European institutions. For example, some policies are very much driven by Brussels, such as EU accession of countries, and I represent them.
And EU accession is a topic that comes up everywhere when we talk about Ukraine. And you are probably one of the most busy people I know with delegations, but that's a good thing because that means that there's interest. I know you had a delegation just this weekend, and I think you still have one. Maybe you'd like to say a little bit about that.
Well, in fact, now whom we have in town is the first ever Commissioner for Defense and Space, Andrius Kubilius, former Lithuanian Prime Minister and a great friend of Ukraine. He's here. He took part in the YES conference that just ended. So indeed was a very busy time. And he's going on tonight to Lviv to a big drone exhibition and conference. And in addition, I also had my predecessor in town, Matti Masikas, who was the ambassador, EU ambassador before me, and now works in the diplomatic service of the EU.
Mm-hmm. Since you mentioned the YES conference, maybe we could talk about that a little bit. So it's my 3rd one that I've attended. We talked about this a little bit last night as well over dinner, and I thought that it was the best one out of the 3 I've attended. One of the observations that I heard many saying, and I have to agree with people, is that I found it interesting just how much we still talk, or at the conference still talked about the US, when one of the messages at the conference was that EU and European countries are actually stepping up. So we did see a few more Europeans at the conference. But do you think that's a fair statement? And so I'll put myself out there. I think so. I think it was really good to have that more of a European perspective in the conference, and some of the topics that we had were important. But what are your views on it?
Well, I think this has been consistently a theme of us commenting. We had that meeting with Viktor Pinchuk, who's the founder and organizer of the conference, that it could benefit from more Europeans, and I think that it was very much visible this time. Mm-hmm. because yes, there was a lot of talk about the U.S. because obviously the posture by the current administration has a huge impact on Ukraine and its future. But there were a lot more European voices than in the past.
I found that they were actually quite vocal and spoke their minds. And I just want to take a pause here that for Canada it was a proud moment. We had Chrystia Freeland return. So she is the current Minister of Transport in Canada, responsible right now for increasing relations between provinces and territories, which was one of her mandates. But she came to the conference as the previous Deputy Prime Minister. That's how she arrived and presented herself. And she was a welcome face and voice, and I thought she did very well. So I was as a Canadian, very proud to have her. But what was a surprise to many was that we also had a former Prime Minister, Jean Chrétien. And Victor Pinchuk mentioned that he actually was his first international guest at the original conference. So he's 91 years old.
Wow.
He showed up, and which was just remarkable that he made the trip. He had a chance to connect with many people that he knew from his time previously. He spoke to me quite a lot about his role in the sarcophagus of the Chernobyl site. So I think for him it was very nostalgic and just really proud that he made the trip. But going back again to some of the European perspectives, I know that I'll leave it to you. But I know that there are Europeans on almost every panel, and you, in fact, chaired a panel as well in one of the evening discussions. I think you talked about the EU accession.
EU accession,
what was some of the surprising questions or topics that showed up that were mentioned on your panel, for example?
Well, it was about the narratives and the perceptions about Ukraine in Europe and vice versa that shape some of the feelings and expectations. But I think the consensus was that Ukraine has made tremendous reform strides. And in fact, currently is at an awkward moment where the EU the Commission, is ready to and has recommended opening of the actual negotiations. But as everything on enlargement is subject to unanimity among the 27 member states, we are not there yet because there is one member state that sees it differently. So it's a little bit of an awkward moment, but in the meantime, the technical work continues. But if I may go back to Jean Chrétien, just with one comment that it's remarkable that somebody at that age actually comes here, because let's face it, the travel to Ukraine is to Kyiv is very taxing. I mean, whether you go by car, whether you go by train, it takes 24 hours. And so kudos to him. And the first time, if he was at the original ES conference, it took place in Odessa. It took place in Yalta, in occupied Crimea.
Yes, he was very nostalgic, actually, and he arrived. Not everyone of his obviously were worried about him coming here, but he came here because he wanted to show that he wasn't scared to come here. And his message was, keep up the fight, Ukraine. And he was very clear. So it was good to have him here.
Very good.
Yes. So you also had a very other exciting visit on the weekend. That I believe it was Prince Harry who was here. So I watched all the photos and I was very envious. I have to confess that. So why did you meet him?
Well, actually, friends who were organizing his visit, because he came for the Invictus game, and that are organized by Andrzej Stavnitzer, who founded the Superhumans facility in Lviv, and now opening one in I believe Dnipro, Odessa, and they invited me actually to one of my favorite spots in Kyiv, which is the self-made, organically growing, sadly growing makeshift memorial to the fallen heroes. It's kind of sad to every time you go there, you see more and more flags, but I think it was a place that touched Prince Harry quite a bit, and I had a chance to talk to him and talk about our embassy bombing and other things. And I found him incredibly human and spontaneous. And it was really a unique encounter.
Again, very important that we spoke about Jean Chrétien making a point of coming here. He is making a point of coming here. And he was in Lviv previously, and now he's in Kyiv. And he has become a very important champion for veterans of Ukraine.
And I think I think he takes after his mom in this of shining light on not exactly the most popular places, but the places that need to be brought to international attention. And I very much agree that the veterans in Ukraine, the heroes that have been injured and have lived with prostheses, etc., and continue fighting, continue with sports, continue with their normal life, is actually a cause worth looking at.
Yes, and I think we all are, including Canada. So we had the Invictus Games in Vancouver in, what was it, January, I believe? No, February, apologies. And I think it was very important to see. Canada flew all of the athletes out there, and they were a very important team to have at the Games, and had an opportunity to also visit some of the vet centers that we have, how Canada is a model. And I know that Minister Kamikova is also looking at the various models. It's an issue that Canada is working with Ukraine, or just starting to work more with Ukraine. EU already is. Yeah. So I think we have, as Canada, much to contribute. I've been asked to speak often on barrier-free, not just infrastructure, but also how we do programming and policy, so that making sure that you bring that perspective to the table. Now, you speak to this as well quite a bit.
And in fact, I think what is with veterans extremely important to underline is that they're not the vulnerable. They are the strength. They are the heroes of this country. And yes, some of them have special needs. Some of them have, double, triple prostheses. But these are people who not only deserve respect, but that command respect in their communities. And frankly, post-war, I think that they're going to be politically active, and that we need to look at them as the strength and the heroes of this country.
Agreed entirely with that statement. So you mentioned a little bit a while ago, so we're both living here. So I think that needs to be understood to whoever's listening from Canada and other countries. Ukrainians know this, but we live here. We and you write about this a lot on your social media as well. And I find your post to be very human, and they have a very large readership. So you are attracting a big audience, and I think that's really important, because we know that people in the world are starting to get Ukraine fatigue, is how it's put. But you make the attention on what's happening here still very much in people's minds. So you write about, just like I do, on having to not sleep at night and hear the explosions, and it can be very scary. And then it's become quite personal. And then you mentioned the EU mission. I won't describe it. I'll let you describe that attack and the impact on your mission.
Well, on the 28th of August, early in the morning, and thankfully very early in the morning, so there were no people in the building other than the guards, there were 2 cruise missiles hitting directly a small administrative building, which is about 80 or 90 meters away from the embassy. And in between that building and us was also the British Council that suffered equally. Mm-hmm. And these 2 cruise missiles, precision weapons, mm-hmm. actually had cluster munition in them. So the impact on our building was quite remarkable, that it blown out over 100 windows, and it broke furniture, it broke the air conditioning system. So there was quite a lot of debris, and we found actual fragments, a lot of actual fragments of the missiles in the building. And even the armored windows that we have on the ground floor were pierced by the shrapnel. And to give you one example, on one of the floors, there was in a little kitchenette, there was a fridge mm-hmm. in the room, and the fridge was pierced both coming in and coming out by the shrapnel from the cluster munitions. So I mm-hmm. think that whoever targets a precision missile with that proximity to a diplomatic mission knows exactly what's going to happen. So I say that we were bombed.
Yes. Thank you for saying that, because I've heard too many voices, and I won't say who, dismissing a lot of this, saying, oh, well, they weren't the target, so it's not a big deal. And it upsets me when I hear that. I can only imagine your reaction to that kind of...
Well, it's hard not to call it a target, since whoever directs the precision missile in that proximity and loads it with mm-hmm. cluster munition, it's targeting a pretty wide area, and we were pretty close to it.
Yes.
Our vehicles were damaged. The door on our garage completely was destroyed. So mm-hmm. I think that while we didn't have a missile directed at us, we had that missile directly impacting us because mm-hmm. we are in close proximity, and the British Council even more so.
Yes. So, and then many ask, are you leaving? And Canada saying, no, we're staying put. And any ambassador
we too.
Yes, exactly. So we are all staying here. The diplomatic community is staying. We're staying with Ukraine, and that's an important statement to make.
Indeed, and in fact, last week Monday, 11 days after the attack, we opened. We had the building checked statically whether it's solid. Actually, I had a lot of my colleagues do the cleanup, so there was a lot of colleagues felt they want to contribute to the cleanup, and the only thing that will take a little bit longer is the over 100 windows. So we only have temporary closure on the windows, and we will have to replace the furniture, some of it, but we are open for business.
Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe we can turn to a little bit more personal. So you and I presented our credentials on the same day, the same ceremony,
Indeed.
Which was, I think that for me, that's a bond with you that I will always have, because it was a very special
Indeed.
Ceremony. So I think there was only 5 of us, 6 of us, yes. And it was a very special ceremony. And something that struck me that you mentioned, because is you said you don't consider yourself a diplomat. What do you mean when you say that? Or maybe I'm not quoting you correctly, but I find it interesting how you describe it.
Well, I was sent here more as a Ukraine expert in a sense. I never went through diplomatic schooling and training. It's not something I've done my entire life. If anybody who knows me, then I'm fairly plain-spoken and direct. But I have worked in the European Commission for a number of years, and the last 10 years very closely with Ukraine. And when the post was opening, it was almost a natural calling for me to listen to the sirens that called me here. I mean, sirens in an antique sense rather than the literal ones. So I was sent here.
Well, I think everyone, I can see the receptivity you have. So you are welcomed home because you've been posted here before, correct?
No, I worked with Ukraine, so I would come on missions very frequently, and before I came, I was the main person in the European Commission dealing with Ukraine. So I was fairly known. I was fairly known entity. In fact, when we talk about the current Ukrainian administration, I was together with Commissioner Shevchovich at that time at President Zelensky's inauguration back in 2019.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Okay.
And I had the huge pleasure in 2022 to receive a decoration from him. And so when you mentioned the beautiful ceremony when we were submitting our credentials, and he says, "Welcome back, Katarína."
Oh, that's beautiful. Very nice. Very nice. You are a lawyer, correct? Or
Yes.
by training?
Yes.
International law?
Also,
Okay. Okay, that's proved very useful.
Indeed. I studied both in Czechoslovakia, now Slovakia, in Bratislava, and then I did my LLM, my graduate degree at the University of Michigan in the US, and then I practiced law in New York and Washington, and then sort of went to the World Bank and the Commission, the World Bank, the Commission, and now I'm here as in my first diplomatic post as the European Union ambassador.
So I think that experience, not just academic, but also from all the work that you've done with Ukraine, is also a very big benefit to the G7 group. So what many might not realize is that we have a G7 support group here of ambassadors. So we were mandated in 2015 to advise, work with Ukraine on their reform agenda at the time. And it has rolled much more aggressively into the EU accession, which is great. And EU sits on that group as well. So you are one of the members. So we say, G7 support group, but it's actually a member of 8 because you're on the group as well. And very, very useful to have your perspective there. And we have been, over the last year, so Canada's the current G7 chair, will be switching to France on January 1. But a lot of our conversations this year were around anti-corruption and judicial reform and rule of law. We talk about this a lot as a group, and we meet with various important stakeholders, including NAPO, SAPO agency heads and ESPU and the Prosecutor General. And we have witnessed also the protests in July here from the public. Nonviolent, and I wouldn't call it protest, demonstration, that I used the wrong word. Very civil. And we saw how effective it was. You have spoken about it. By young people. So I was hoping you can talk a little bit about this, because I like the way you describe it and provide sort of the history and the perspective on this.
Well, I would like to start by saying that since the Maidan revolution, Ukraine has made incredible progress in eradicating corruption sector by sector of the economy. It has built up a whole series of anti-corruption agencies. It introduced fairly onerous and far-reaching asset declarations and rules for public officials and transparency. And this all happened in combination of local internal push by the very active civil society, and also prodding or cajoling by the international community. And I think over the 10 years, the reality in Ukraine has made an incredible shift. And unfortunately, the Russian narrative of oh, it's such a corrupt country, it's practically a failed state, was broken on the failed state part, because after the full-scale invasion, the whole world didn't know Ukraine discovered it's by far not a failed state. But the corruption narrative is still extremely strong. This is a country that fights corruption. This is not a country that is defined by corruption. And that has changed dramatically in the last 10 years. Now, you were referring to July. There are indeed, of course, when you are changing the system, the vested interests fight against that. We all who have been doing reforms in our own countries, like I did throughout during my career, know that vested interests fight. That's what they do. And I think there was a backlash against the anti-corruption institutions in July, particularly NABU, the investigative arm, and SAP, which is the specialized prosecutor. And there were two elements that made the government reverse course. One was the feeling among the young population that they are fighting for a different Ukraine, not the legacy one, but the modern one that it is, and also push from especially the European partners that made it clear that the as part of the EU Accession, as part of the rule of law reforms, rule of law roadmap that we have developed, the anti-corruption institutions are key for the future institutional stability. And I must say that they reversed the course very rapidly and heard us and heard the young people from the street. And but it was a moment of pause, and it was a moment that is obviously making us vigilant going forward.
Yeah, so I think just to emphasize that, so you mentioned the revolution of dignity, and these institutions were in fact a result of that time. We've seen progress, amazing progress from that time. As you said, they're making remarkable progress in reform. And someone actually at the Yes panel had said, it's unfortunate in the sense that they're speaking out on the successes they're having, and the world is hearing the Russian narrative. Aha, you see, they still have corruption because they're speaking out about it.
There, of course, is corruption, but it's a country that fights it.
It's fighting it, it's addressing it. And again, bringing it back to the July event, it was peaceful. The government heard, listened, and responded in an amazingly short time. And afterwards actually had a youth forum to give it a proper stage for interactions with the government. And I attended that as well, and I found it very inspiring. I think they set it up in various topics. So I was on the topic of I don't even remember now specifically, but it matters less what the exact topic was. But it was the youth were presenting to the government officials, including the Prime Minister, Sverdenko already, and presenting their strategy and how they're going to be involved. And now I believe every ministry has a youth council to support them. So it's only positive.
I also look at July as a moment of pause and a hiccup, if you will. But as progress is never linear, I think that the outcome of July has been overall positive.
I'm going to say something that, because I just imagine it will come up. The G7 group that we just mentioned was actually criticized in the social media that we didn't act early enough, and I've been reflecting on that a little bit. I'm not sure what more we could have done. Do you think we should have done more earlier as a G7 support group?
On this, perhaps. I think that the G7 group has been sort of taken as a canary in a coal mine in a way over the years since 2015. We used to have an incredibly vocal U.S. participation, and that's shifting a bit. And I think that we are seeing how it will develop, and I think that some of the criticism is also because it's not visible what we do, not via the media and the discussions we have with the authorities, the messages that we pass, and I think this is the role of diplomacy, not to do everything through media. So I also saw the criticism, but also in the past a lot happened publicly, but a lot happened off the record, as you call your program, and I think that was very much present this time as well.
So I agree, and I have reflected on this quite a bit, and I think it's important for everyone to realize that diplomacy isn't always public, and nor should it be. Finding the right balance of when to be public is not always easy to navigate. I think that we are also being very respectful to making sure that the public face are the Ukrainians themselves and giving them support from behind. And sometimes that is an important role for diplomats to do.
Indeed.
So, we're evolving, we're learning, our role is evolving as well. So it's a very exciting time to be here. I feel very hopeful. I think we share that hope. Supporting Ukrainians is easy because they're so passionate about this, about the reforms, about joining the EU. Many are coming back. So it is a very exciting time to be here. Is there anything you would like to say before we end the show?
Just to say that it's exciting, it is a calling, but it is a dreadful time for Ukraine and Ukrainians. The war has been going on for 3.5 years, and people are exhausted. We now have the longest convocation of the parliament or the presidential office. It's the normal life of people is put on hold. It's hard to plan what you do. So it's really, hopefully, we are getting clear to we are getting hopefully closer to a time when Putin will be forced to sit down and agree the end of the war. And I'm just hoping that every day we are closer to it.
So I want to just take this opportunity to thank you, Katarína, for everything that you're doing here. You are a very good friend to Ukraine, but you're also a very good friend to the diplomatic community. And so you've been personally a good friend to me as well. So thank you very much. I'm very glad that we are here at the same time. So I've been speaking with the EU Ambassador, Katarína Mathernová, and you've been listening to Off the Record. I'm Natalka Cmoc. Thank you very much for joining us.